You ever notice how betrayal never knocks? It just barges in, drinks your coffee, and tells you your life was a lie. Mine arrived on a Tuesday. Not a dramatic day, not stormy, not poetic, just Tuesday laundry day. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee from the same chipped mug I'd used since college, when Lindsay, my wife of 7 years, walked in wearing lipstick that didn't match the rest of her face. Now, I'm not a makeup guy, but when your wife, who's never worn a shade bolder than beige, suddenly walks into the kitchen at 9 a.m. looking like a vintage pinup girl, you notice. Big meeting today? I asked. She blinked too long. What? I nodded toward her face. The lipstick. Looks good. Bold choice for your accounting department. She smiled. That tight kind of smile people use when they don't know if you're complimenting them or watching them drown. Just felt like dressing up today. That was lie number one. And I already knew it. See, I'd been noticing the small things for months. She started locking her phone, started showering after working late, started using words like me time, boundaries, and clarity. Words she used to laugh at when other people said them. But I didn't confront her. Yet. Because I had a theory. A simple one. People who think they're clever always overplay their hand. And Lindsay? She was dealing in wild cards thinking she had a full house. I had time. And patience. And one very quiet, very loyal friend who happened to work IT at the hotel she kept staying at during retreats. I wasn't going to shout or smash plates. I wasn't going to beg. I don't do begging. That's not strength. That's strategy gone wrong. Instead, I waited. That afternoon, she left for her leadership development workshop. She packed light. Too light. Notebook. PowerPoint clicker. 2 pairs of lingerie I never got to see. I kissed her on the cheek. Crushed that meeting. She smiled. You know me. Oh, I did. Just not in the way she thought. I waited 15 minutes. Then I made a call. Hey, you still working the front desk at the Blackwell downtown? Still here, said Kevin. What do you need? I leaned back in the kitchen chair and watched the lipstick stain on her coffee cup. Room number. He didn't ask who. He already knew. Room 813. Same guy as last time. You want me to send someone? No. Just do one thing for me. Yeah. Record the room number next week too. Something tells me it won't be 813 forever. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I made her dinner. Chicken piccata, her favorite. She barely touched it. Said her stomach felt off. I smiled. Hope it wasn't the workshop food. She flinched. Just for a second. The next morning, I left early for work. Only I didn't go to work. I parked 2 blocks from the Blackwell Hotel and waited with a thermos of black coffee and a camera lens that could read text through tinted glass. At 8:42 a.m., they walked out. Him first. Confident stride, shirt slightly wrinkled in that deliberately messy way. Then her, Lindsay, in the same pencil skirt she wore to quarterly forecasting meetings, but with the top button of her blouse undone. He kissed her cheek. She laughed. And that was it. Not passion, not guilt, just casual deception, like brushing her teeth or deleting browser history. I didn't take photos that day. I didn't need to. This wasn't about proof. This was about data collection, patterns, timelines, consistency. That evening, she came home talking about synergy and cross-functional insights. She always got verbose when she lied. People do. I asked, you guys work on teams or in pairs? She blinked, caught mid-pour of wine. Pairs mostly. What? I shrugged. Just wondering. Always thought collaboration was more powerful in a group. She sipped her wine like it might explain her way out of the question. That night, I opened a folder on my laptop. It was called 813. Inside, notes, timestamps, screenshots, receipts. I wasn't building a case. I was preparing a performance. Because if she was going to lie like it was theater, I figured, why not give her an audience? And then, the opportunity practically delivered itself. Her birthday. She had planned a small, intimate dinner. Just us, she said. A quiet night. But I'd seen her text to him. Can't wait. You make me feel alive. Saturday's all for us. Kiss mark. I RSVP'd to the lie. What she didn't know is that I'd already rented a private dining room. Not at the Blackwell. That was amateur hour. I chose a place across town. Quiet. Classy. With a projector screen. Just in case. She showed up in a red dress. The one she wore on our 3rd anniversary. I think that was supposed to disarm me. Remind me of a memory she'd already replaced. You look amazing, I said, and I meant it. Not because I was still in love, but because I appreciated the irony of dressing up for your own downfall. She leaned in to kiss my cheek. I moved just slightly to the left. Something wrong? She asked. Not at all, I smiled. Tonight's going to be unforgettable. And I meant that too. So we're sitting in the private room at Lark and Ember, one of those modern places with abstract lighting, minimalist plating, and prices that say we don't need your Yelp review. The hostess had helped me arrange everything. I told her it was a surprise party. Technically true. Lindsay looked around, a little confused. Just us? She asked. I handed her the menu. Thought we'd start the night alone. More intimate. She smiled. This is really sweet, babe. Just wait, I said, with the kind of grin that should have tipped off a Bond villain. But she was too busy texting under the table, probably letting him know the coast was clear. What she didn't know? He had also received an invitation from a very official-looking Gmail account labeled HR Admin, M, and a division. The message read, "Please join Lindsay R. and partners from the department for a surprise pre-merger dinner briefing. Formal attire. Room reservation under the name Everett. Attendance required." She used to joke that I never paid attention to her work life. Guess that backfired. At 7:43 p.m., there was a knock at the private room door. Lindsay looked up, mid-bite of risotto. Expecting someone? She asked, a fork still in her hand. No, I said calmly. But I think you are. The door opened, and in walked the man himself. Mr. Business Casual, tan, confident, completely unaware of the trap he just tap-danced into. His name was Trevor. Yep, of course it was Trevor. He stopped cold. Lindsay, he blinked. They told me this was. And then his eyes landed on me. Oh, his voice flattened. Oh, Lindsay echoed, color draining from her cheeks. She stood up slowly, the napkin falling from her lap like a white flag. I leaned back in my chair and folded my hands. Trevor, welcome. You made it just in time. We were just about to start dessert. Lindsay looked at me. What is this? I gestured to the waiter. He wheeled in a cart with a covered dish. Silver dome, elegant handle. Theatrical as hell. Thought I'd serve the truth, I said. A little rich, a little bitter. Just how you like it. I lifted the lid. Underneath? A small projector. I tapped a button on my phone, and the wall behind us lit up. Photos. Time-stamped. Hotel check-ins. Restaurant receipts. A few muted clips from a security camera Trevor didn't know was in the parking garage at his office. Lindsay gasped. Trevor took a half step back like someone had just pulled the fire alarm. You've been spying on me? She snapped. I sipped my water. Oh no, Lindsay. Investigating. There's a difference. Trevor stammered. I didn't know you two were still married. I offered. Still sleeping in the same house. Still filing joint taxes? Yeah, wild, right? Lindsay grabbed her purse. This is sick. You ambushed me. I stood up, walked to her slowly, and said no. You lit the match. I just turned off the smoke alarm. She looked at Trevor like he might jump in and defend her. He didn't. He was already inching toward the exit. I let them both leave. No yelling. No scene. Just a clean, surgical truth, delivered under warm candlelight and a touch of Riesling. I paid the bill, tipped 40%, and told the waiter, best breakup dinner I've ever had. He grinned. We've hosted worse. It's a funny thing. Really, how people react when their masks fall off. Some people break. Some apologize. Lindsay? She adjusted her posture like she was still at a job interview and walked out of that restaurant like I was the one who embarrassed her. That was fine. She'd always been better at the performance than the plot. By the time I got home, the house was already dark. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I sat in the kitchen with a fresh cup of coffee, decaf, because I didn't need adrenaline anymore, and stared at the half-empty wine rack she'd always curated like it was a personality trait. No note. No voicemail. Just silence. At 2:16 a.m., the front door opened. She walked in wearing the same red dress, now with wrinkled sleeves and her dignity tucked somewhere between her elbow and her ego. Her heels clicked like she owned the floor, but her eyes scanned the room like she wasn't sure she was still welcome. She stopped in the doorway. You humiliated me. I didn't look up from my cup. You cheated on me. She didn't answer. Sit, I said. She sat. Slowly, like she was afraid the chair might reject her. I want to make something clear, I said. This isn't about revenge. This isn't rage. This is clarity. You walked into a marriage and treated it like a waiting room. I just removed the magazines and called your name. Her eyes narrowed. So that's it. You catch me, and now you get to play Philosopher King. I'm not playing anything, I said. You already finished the game. I'm just reading the scorecard. She crossed her arms. You didn't have to do it that way. The projector? The pictures? Trevor didn't even know. I held up a finger. Stop defending Trevor. He's not your problem anymore. She tilted her head. Oh, so I'm just discarded? No, I said. You're being returned. There's a difference. She stood up, pacing now, arms flailing like she was on trial, and the jury didn't clap loud enough. We've been off for months. You never talked to me. You never noticed me. I noticed you, I said calmly. I noticed every text, every lie, every little smile at your phone while I was cooking dinner. She stopped pacing. So what now? You want me to move out? No, I said, and that stopped her cold. You're going to stay? She blinked. What? You're going to stay? I repeated. For 30 days. I already filed the divorce paperwork. You'll sign them on the 30th day. She narrowed her eyes. And why would I do that? Because I've drafted a statement, I said, sliding a folder across the table. A very generous one. You'll get the car, the downtown condo, even the lake house. But you need to stay. Quietly. Gracefully. You play the role of cooperative partner, and you walk away with more than you deserve. She opened the folder, skimmed the front page. You're giving me the condo? I nodded. I'm not petty, Lindsay, but I am thorough. She looked up at me, voice low now. What happens if I leave tonight? Then I send an entirely different folder to HR at your company, I said, leaning back. One that includes your hotel stays, calendar invites, screenshots from company devices. The one with the internal affairs policies stapled on top. Silence. You recorded me? She asked, horror now blooming behind her eyes. No. You recorded you, I replied. With your actions. I just printed the transcript. She sat back down slowly. I let that hang in the air. Then I added, you'll be polite. You'll do the dishes. You'll smile when friends are over, and you'll post a few photos of us at brunch. You'll wear your ring. Why? I leaned forward. Because I want them to wonder. I want your little gallery of gossip girlfriends to ask questions. I want Trevor to go cold wondering why you're still here. And I want you to sit in that space between shame and silence for 30 days. She laughed, short, humorless. You really are a monster. No, I said. I'm the mirror. You just don't like what's in it. She stood again. This won't change anything. I'll still get what I want. I smiled. You already did. And now you get to live with it. She didn't respond. Just walked upstairs, her steps slower now, deliberate. For the first time in years. I heard her hesitate at the top of the stairs, like she wasn't sure where she belonged in the house she helped decorate. And me? I stayed downstairs with my coffee. I didn't need sleep. I was watching the final act of a play I didn't audition for, but had stolen the spotlight anyway. There's something cathartic about knowing you're the ghost in someone else's story now, the presence they can't explain away. Lindsay thought she was moving on, but for the next 30 days, she'd be walking on glass, barefoot. 3 days into her 30-day sentence, Lindsay started smiling at breakfast. Not a big, goofy grin, just a twitch at the corners, the kind people practice in mirrors before walking into interviews or courtrooms. She made coffee, poured mine without asking, and sat across from me in the kitchen like it was any other Tuesday in any other year of our marriage. How's work? She asked. That was the first sentence she'd spoken to me that didn't start with "Can you sign this?" or "You left the fridge open in months." I didn't look up from my paper. Same as yesterday. She sipped her coffee. I knew what she was doing. This was a soft launch, a test. She thought, maybe if she could normalize it, pretend the storm didn't flood the house, maybe I'd forget there was still water under the floorboards. But I wasn't her lifeboat anymore. By day 5, she posted a photo of our front porch. Just the flower box and her feet in fuzzy socks. The caption read, "Cozy mornings with my favorite coffee and favorite view, hot beverage, cherry blossom, #grateful." Favorite view. She didn't tag me, smart move. But the message was clear. Still married, still home, still in control. Except she wasn't. You see, part of her punishment wasn't loud. It was subtle, deliberate, quiet in a way that made it unbearable. I removed her face from the hallway photos. Not all of them, just the ones with us together. Left a few blank frames. When she walked by, they caught her in reflection, not remembrance. She noticed. Of course she did. Did something fall? She asked on day 6, standing in front of the gallery wall. Yeah, I said. A few illusions. She didn't answer. Just walked off slowly like she'd left the stove on. By day 8, I started inviting people over. Not friends, her friends. Well, the ones who still thought we were the golden couple. The wine night crowd. The brunchers. The curated smiles with curated husbands. I made cocktails, poured wine, told stories about how work's been good and how Lindsay's been doing some real soul-searching. I didn't lie, not technically. I just steered the ship while she bailed water with a teaspoon. And she played along. Because that's what image requires, performance. I've never seen you two more aligned, her friend Marissa said one night, swirling Chardonnay in a glass Lindsay had picked out for our 10th anniversary. Oh, we've never been clearer, I said, smiling like a man on a cliff who knows exactly how far down the rocks are. Lindsay laughed too hard. She touched my arm. She called me babe. It was impressive, honestly. I could almost respect it. Almost. But then came day 12. That's when things started slipping. She came into the kitchen wearing one of my old sweatshirts. The one I stopped wearing after the 2nd anniversary because it smelled like campfires and contentment, and we didn't do either of those anymore. She opened the fridge, stood there too long, then closed it without taking anything. You okay? I asked, not looking up from my laptop. She hesitated. Yeah, just hungry for something I can't find. That was the first honest thing she'd said since the projector lit up the truth. That night, I heard her crying in the shower. Quiet, controlled, like someone who'd trained herself not to be heard breaking. But I didn't go to her. That was the old me, the man who fixed broken cabinet hinges and moods. That man was officially retired. Instead, I walked to the living room, turned on the TV, and played her favorite movie. Not loudly, just loud enough that she'd know I remembered. Just soft enough that she'd wonder if I did it on purpose. Spoiler, I did. Day 15, halfway, she broke the silence at dinner. This isn't fair, she said. No sarcasm. No bite. Just tired. I took a sip of my wine. You agreed to the terms. I thought I could handle it. And now, she stared at her plate. I didn't think it would be this quiet. That made me pause. Not because I felt bad. Not because I had any interest in rescuing her. But because that was it. That was the thing. The silence. The absence of warmth. The vacuum where love used to echo. See, people like Lindsay, they can handle drama. They thrive on it. Loud fights, big exits, slammed doors. All that noise lets them feel alive. But silence, indifference, that's where they suffocate. You wanted space, I said calmly. Now you're sitting in it. She pushed her plate away. I made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow. Which one? Her eyes glistened. She didn't answer. I stood, gathered my plate, and walked to the sink. As I rinsed it, I said over my shoulder, "It's not the cheating that killed us. It's that you thought I was stupid enough not to notice." I heard her exhale, sharp and small, like a balloon giving up mid-float. That night, she didn't sleep in the bedroom. She curled up on the couch under the blanket I used to keep in my office. I know because I passed by at 2:07 a.m. and saw her staring at the ceiling like it owed her an apology. She was unraveling, and I wasn't stopping her. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. This was education. By day 16, Lindsay was trying out a new strategy, the redemption arc. You could see it forming like a cheap soap opera plot. She started waking up early, making fresh coffee. Not that pod junk she used to love, but real ground beans, the kind I preferred. The kitchen started smelling like hope and desperation before 8 a.m. She started reading books again, too. The kind with titles like Emotional Integrity and Choosing Us, as if the bookshelf could baptize her past. I watched her highlight entire pages with a pink marker like it could blot out 3 years of lies. One morning, I found her sitting on the back porch with a leather-bound journal, scribbling so fast her coffee went cold. I didn't ask what she was writing. I didn't need to. That evening, she left it open on the kitchen counter, page marked with a yellow sticky note. Just read it. No tricks. Just me. Cute. The entry was dated that morning. Her handwriting curled the same way it always did when she was trying to sound vulnerable. It read like a letter. Not to me exactly. More to the version of me she wished existed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted a spark. I wanted to feel something again. But I lost the map. I hurt you because I didn't know how to face the emptiness I created. You were always steady. And I mistook that for boring. I didn't see how rare that is. How lucky I was to have someone who didn't flinch when life got heavy. I know this doesn't undo anything. But I'm not asking for undoing. I'm asking for acknowledgement. That I failed, but I'm still here. I closed the journal. Neatly. Politely. Then I wrote a note of my own on the sticky. You want acknowledgement? Okay. I acknowledge you've finally realized how heavy your choices are, and that I'm no longer the one lifting them. I left it right where she'd find it, on top of the closed journal. She read it while I was brushing my teeth. I heard her quiet sigh from down the hall. She didn't leave another note after that. But on day 18, I saw her post a new photo online. It was a throwback. Us at Lake Superior, wind in our hair, her laughing like the world was hers. Captioned, "Healing isn't linear, but sometimes, looking back reminds you what's worth saving." The comments rolled in fast. Couple goals, 2 hearts. So glad you guys are working through it. Rooting for you too. She replied to each one. Gracious. Humble. The image of a woman rebuilding something noble. She didn't tag me, of course. Would have been too risky. I didn't confront her. Instead, I posted my own photo that night. Just my hands holding a deck of cards. Caption. It's wild how people think the game's still going when they've already lost. No hashtags. No names. Just silence with teeth. Day 20. She tried the emotional approach again, this time in person. We were in the kitchen. She was making pasta. I hadn't asked for dinner, but she made it anyway. Candle lit. Napkins folded. Do you ever think about how we used to be? She asked, stirring slowly. Before all this. All this. I echoed. She didn't blink. The distance. The damage. The mistakes. You mean the affair? She flinched. I wasn't trying to make it sound prettier. Could have fooled me. She leaned against the counter. I miss you. I poured myself a glass of water. You miss the man who didn't know what you were doing. You miss the blind version of me. Her eyes didn't waver. That's not true. Sure it is, I said, sipping slowly. You miss the man who loved you without question. The one who covered your rent when you were broke, brought you soup when you were sick, memorized your mom's birthday because you kept forgetting it. I know what I lost, she said. No, I corrected. You know what you had. You haven't felt the loss yet. That's coming. Slow. Cold. Like winter when you didn't buy a coat because you thought it wouldn't be that bad. She didn't speak after that. Just finished cooking, plated the pasta, and left it on the table like an offering. I didn't need it. Day 23, she tried nostalgia. She pulled out the old shoebox of wedding stuff. Dried rose petals. Photos. The letter I wrote her on the morning of our wedding. Folded so carefully, it still had the crease. I found these, she said, holding it out. I know where they were. I thought maybe they'd remind us of something. I looked her in the eye. They remind me of someone. But not you. Her mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. Later that night, I watched her sit alone on the couch, hugging that box like it still held a future. That was the cruel part, I think, not the silence. Not the coldness. It was her realization that the story she was trying to rewrite no longer had a reader. She'd spent so long painting herself as the victim of boredom, the prisoner of routine. But there she was, free and completely alone. By day 25, she stopped posting. No porch pics. No healing quotes. She didn't even fake smiles around her friends. She just existed. In the same house as the man who used to build her a life and now offered her nothing but the sound of his own resilience. The red dress she wore on her birthday? I found it balled up in the bottom of the laundry hamper. Wrinkled. Forgotten. Unworthy even of hanging. We were approaching the final act now, and I hadn't even played my best card yet. By day 26, the pasta had stopped. The porch photos? Gone. The journal stayed closed. Lindsay no longer bothered with tactics. She'd run through them all. She was quieter now. Not the kind of quiet that signals control, but the kind that happens when someone realizes the wheel they've been spinning doesn't connect to the road anymore. That's when she tried her last move, the confession. She cornered me in the living room. No wine. No filter. Just raw desperation barely holding itself upright. I ended it with him, she said. I looked up from my book. What took so long? She ignored the jab. I told him I was done. I blocked him. Deleted everything. And, I want to fix us. There it was, the final card. Not the Queen of Hearts. Not even a bluff. Just a desperate Hail Mary tossed into a wind she couldn't read anymore. You can't fix what you buried, I said, setting the book down. You can only grieve it. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded. Good. You should be. I don't expect you to take me back. I won't. She blinked fast. Then why let me stay? Why not throw me out the night you found out? I stood up, walked over slowly, and looked her dead in the eyes. Because, I said, you needed to understand the value of what you lost. Not from a distance. From the inside. Where it echoes. She didn't cry. Not then. She just stood there, silent, small, and finally, honest. That was the day she stopped calling this a mistake. That was the day she started calling it a consequence. Day 28 was uneventful. I mowed the lawn. She vacuumed the stairs. We passed each other in the hallway like two strangers whose names used to mean something. We weren't angry anymore. That was the strangest part. She'd burned the house down, and I had rebuilt it around her, brick by brick, not to trap her, but to show her what comfort looked like when it stopped calling her name. On day 29, she sat down across from me at dinner. I've packed my things, she said. Everything I came in with, nothing more. You're taking the condo and the lake house. I reminded her. I know. Still feels like I'm leaving with less. I nodded. Because you are. She didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't offer it. That night, we watched a storm roll in from opposite sides of the living room. The thunder didn't rattle the windows as much as her quiet acceptance did. She no longer looked like a woman who had something to prove. She looked like someone who had finally run out of ways to lie to herself. Day 30. We met at the kitchen table. The divorce papers were printed and waiting. 2 copies. 2 pens. She didn't ask for one more conversation. One more moment. Just sat down, took a breath, and signed. I signed mine too. Quiet. Steady. As always. I know I don't deserve a thank you, she said, folding her copy. No, I said. You don't. But I'll give you something better. She looked up, wary. What? Closure. She tilted her head. That's generous. It's not for you. She blinked. Then who? I slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, a printed email. One she sent to her best friend a month before the affair started. The subject line, I think I might blow it all up just to feel something again. She stared at it. I forwarded that to Trevor last night, I said calmly. He reached out to me. Apologized, actually. She paled. Why would you do that? Because he deserves to know what he was to you. A firecracker to burn a bridge. She looked like she wanted to throw up. What did he say? That he's going back to his wife. And he's sorry he helped you hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I stood. You didn't just lose me, Lindsay. You lost the man who was willing to catch you when you fell. And you made sure no one was left to break your landing. She looked down. So what happens now? I picked up the envelope. Now you start over. She nodded. And you? I already did. 1 week later, the condo was in her name. The lake house too. Her accounts were filled. Her lawyer, satisfied. And me? I stood on the porch of my new place. A little smaller. A little quieter. But mine. The best part? I wasn't alone. She pulled up at 3 p.m., like we agreed. Not Lindsay. Chloe. Yep, the same Chloe who warned me. Who sent me those photos. The same woman Lindsay once mocked for being jealous and dramatic. She stepped out of her car with 2 coffees and that same no-nonsense face that once cracked this whole story wide open. You ready? She asked. I smiled. You sure? She handed me the coffee. I knew the day she brought him to your birthday dinner. That's when I stopped being quiet. We didn't need a movie montage. No big kiss in the ring. Just 2 people with their eyes open for once. As we walked inside, I heard my phone buzz. A message from Lindsay. I heard you're seeing her. You always had a thing for rescuers. I replied. No, just people who tell the truth, even when it hurts. Then I blocked the number. Because this story was over. And I wasn't the tragic husband anymore. I was the narrator. The one who watched it all, felt every twist, and still walked out with his head held high. Not because I needed revenge. Because I wrote the ending.